My name is Arjuna Ardagh. I'm the author of The Translucent Revolution and several other books. It was in the winter of 2004 that my old friend Mickey Carlham returned for a visit to India. When he told me he'd found the keys to perfect enlightenment, it was hard for me to explain to him just how not interested I was. I've been visiting India since I was in my early 20s, spending a good deal of my life chasing after the elusive enlightenment, and I thought I was really done with all that. But here we are, back in India, and let me tell you how it happened. It was only when Mickey told me more about his trip that I got interested. Seems he had received a number of transmissions called Deeksha, which had allowed him to more deeply feel the pain he'd caused to others, to feel his own body more, to have a greater sense of service and purpose in life. In short, Mickey had become a more compassionate, decent human being. The Translucent Revolution was published in the summer of 2005. With the usual circus of radio, TV and magazine interviews that accompanies any new book, by the fall I was exhausted. Then I was contacted by the Oneness University myself, same place where Mickey had been. They'd read my book and invited me to also come for a visit. Hey, seems we could sleep as much as we wanted, take walks and eat. As far as my wife and I were concerned, this was the perfect vacation spot. During our 3-week stay that winter, we also received a number of these Deekshas from young guides, or dasas. Each Deeksha was imbued with a specific intention: to release any residual trauma from one's mother or father, healing of the physical body, or to fully feel the pain one has caused to others. There were 3 things that really impressed me during that first visit. The first were those 170 young dasas who run the place. I've been around spiritual organizations for a number of years, and I was used to there being a great teacher, profound teachings, powerful techniques, but among the followers a degree of politics and hierarchy. I was expecting the same thing here, but I didn't find it. Instead, what I found was a quality of harmony, cooperation, and oneness, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The second thing was the power of the Deeksha itself. Spiritual technologies can often appear to be a little hit or miss. Sometimes they take you straight to silence and bliss. Sometimes they don't. Here was a technology that actually works, that delivers the result it intends to deliver pretty much every time. The third thing that impressed me was the scope of the vision. To some it may sound grandiose and unrealistic, the idea of transforming global consciousness in just a few years. But there are many things about this vision which lend it credibility, and which give me the grounds to feel that this may be the kind of coordinated effort to transform global consciousness that we've been waiting for. Towards the end of my stay, I met with some of the dasas and I said to them, hey, this is great. What's happening here is wonderful, but it seems to be lacking a certain credibility. It needs a good book. And sure enough, a couple of days later, they came back to me and said, hey, thanks for the suggestion. We'd love for you to write the book.
So I've spent the last months talking to people involved in Deeksha all over the world. I've done considerable research. During this time, I've been able to collect questions from Deeksha givers, from skeptics, as well as people who are enthusiastic. And today, I have the opportunity to bring these questions that I've collected to the founder of the Oneness University, Sri Bhagavan. He's agreed to conduct an extensive interview covering all of these topics, and I've also been given the very, very rare opportunity to also interview his wife and the co-founder, Amma. Let's go in now and meet Sri Bhagavan and hear more about Deeksha. Bhagavan, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview today. I know that you've become incredibly busy, and just in the last days, you've met with celebrities from Hollywood, visitors from the Vatican, even the president of a country. During the last, actually just a couple of years, Deeksha has spread like wildfire. I'd like to start our interview today by asking you, how would you describe Deeksha to somebody hearing about it for the first time? What is Deeksha?
Deeksha is the phenomenon where the divine reaches out to man. And the person who's giving Deeksha is making himself or herself available to the divine, and he becomes an instrument. It looks like in the last few years, there's been greater divine intervention in human lives. And that is the phenomenon of Deeksha. Probably the best word to use would be the word phenomenon. It's a phenomenon.
As you know, I've been researching to write a book about this phenomenon. And so I've talked to people all over the world in different countries, different stages of receiving Deeksha. What I've noticed is people have very different subjective experience while receiving Deeksha. For some people, they have very powerful, energetic explosions.
Yes.
Some people can have actually seemingly unpleasant experience. Something arises that doesn't feel good. For some people, they say nothing happens at all, although they still notice that over time, their life changes. Could you explain the significance of subjective experience during the Deeksha?
I think there are basically three factors involved. One is the person receiving the Deeksha, and the other is the person giving the Deeksha, and the third is the divine itself. Because we have noticed sometimes people whom we thought would make very little progress, making dramatic progress. We have had instances of people sleeping through courses and become enlightened. So we really cannot comment on the person, So it also depends on the person who's giving the Deeksha. And then there's of course the divine, which is the ultimate source of all this, and whatever the divine decides, it happens. We have had people whom one might call immoral people, or people who are not the right kind of people to receive Deeksha, but they ended up as the most transformed people. So there's really no way we could judge on those matters. But we can as a rule say that it depends upon how receptive you are, what your beliefs are and what your conditioning is, and the quality of the person giving the Deeksha, and above all, what the divine chooses for the day and for the person.
My name's Lindsay Wagner, and I am an actress. I first had Deeksha about a year ago. With my first experience, I felt the energy very strong. I laid down, as we sometimes have the opportunity to do when we're receiving Deeksha, and went very deep inside and felt energy flowing through my body. What happened when I left this place after having Deeksha for the first time, I got in my car thinking, okay, now I'll get on the LA freeway and drive home. And I got on the LA freeway and pulled right off the LA freeway. I went, wow, maybe I could do competitive driving at 80 miles an hour right now, but I have absolutely no desire to and no willingness to. I got off the freeway, I drove the streets home, and I was so full of joy and just the sheer bliss of being alive. It wasn't like a bliss state where I was, high to where I couldn't function. It was just that to me, which I also typically think is insanity. But in that moment, every cell of my body went, this is insanity. I'm alive. Look at that tree, look at the flowers all the way home, So I took the streets home, and it was perfectly enjoyable, and it was traffic hour. And so I said, wow, there's really something very special to this. Then I thought, well, gosh, can somebody function like this? What if you could just live your life like this? And so I thought, what if I really had to do something that I had to focus on and not just be like this? And I got home and the phone rang and I had to take care of some business, and I went zoop and I focused. And it was so natural to just focus that I didn't think about it, I just did it until after I got off the phone and I went, wow, I just went from feeling that to focusing, and I didn't feel bad when I focused, but I was very focused. And then I just went on about my life waiting to see how it was going to affect me. One of the things that I noticed was that I never kind of came back down to where I was initially. And that's very unfamiliar to me relative to spiritual practice, because being a meditator and other things for many years, it works well, it brings peace and all of that, but I've never felt a completely permanent shift from certain things, kind of across the board. It's as if it raised my bottom, so to speak. Not that I didn't have ups and downs, not that I still don't have ups and downs. Now I've been through the 21-day program, not just having a first Deeksha, but my whole bottom's been raised. I never, even when I go down to a place that feels like it used to. Something on a very core level has been, I'll use our Western terminology, is healed or filled with light instead of whatever was there before.
My name is Dorian Kenji, and I basically work in the film industry. I'm, as of right now, a filmmaker, an actor, and a stuntman. First experience of Deeksha. It was very interesting. My first experience happened when my mother wanted me to go to a church and talk about this energy work that she just recently found out about. Sounded kind of interesting and didn't really describe a whole lot to me about it, but she tried to, but it's not something you can really, you have to experience it, obviously. I was very hesitant initially because I was one of the last people to go up, so I went up and had it and didn't really feel anything initially in the beginning. I came back and sat down in my chair and was kind of like, okay, great, awesome, thank you. Like, kind of not being rude, but just didn't really feel anything in the moment. And then I went home and I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and I felt really good for like no reason whatsoever. Like, I usually have to wake up and get my coffee and kind of pull myself out of bed and just kind of that whole thing. And I just woke up and I was like, I feel good. Like, today's a good day. It'll be good. Got dressed, went outside and looked at the sky and I'm like, wow, it is a nice day. This is weird. You know, just kind of like this awkward feeling. And then after that, I called my mom and I was like, it's a great day. This is awesome day. What's going on? I hope your day is as good as mine right now. And she's like, you're feeling it, huh? And I was like, that was like my first total experience of just like not necessarily doing something, but receiving an energy source, so, you know, a transference of healing that just helped me feel something in, you know, physically within such a short period of time. And it was basically from that point I was kind of hooked. After that I was like, why not be blissed out without having substances, you know? It was cool.
I just have to say that the feeling of that original Deeksha that I received, I can still check in with that feeling now in my body and up here somehow. And what it was they put their hands on our heads, and there were about maybe 4 Deeksha givers, many of whom I still know are dear friends to me, even though some of them don't live here anymore. And it felt like this trickle, and I'm going to describe it as a trickle, as this trickle of sensation that went down through the top of my head into my brain and kind of took up residence somewhere in the middle of my brain. And at the same time, and especially afterwards when I laid down, I had this sense and this perception of the most incredible deep blue light, like cobalt blue light interiorly. And this sensation and that perception of the light was so pleasurable that I just wanted more. And that's what I wound up thinking as I was laying there on the floor. I just kept thinking, I want more. Whatever this is, I want more.
Bhagavan, some people, when they receive Deeksha, their subjective experience is not completely pleasant. They may experience memories coming or feelings which they don't like to feel, but they continue to receive Deeksha. Something within them somehow knows that it's the right thing. They continue, even over weeks and months, they continue with the Deeksha, not feeling good, but their life starts to unfold. So what can we say to somebody who is receiving Deeksha but not feeling bliss or not feeling love, feeling unpleasant memories or unpleasant feelings?
Yes. We would recommend to them that they must continue the Deekshas till they get a breakthrough. So this is often a cleansing process, and very soon they will be out of it.
What the energy has done to me hasn't always been completely pleasant. There have been some side effects that haven't been pleasant, but they're always only temporary, and it's really no big deal. For instance, I had a flood in my house. Well, my house needed to be totally renewed. And by the way, the insurance covered it. Or having my computer die, and that wasn't any fun. But the computer needed renewing too. So each step along the way, as my life is actually improving, I'm becoming more productive. I'm back in touch with who I noticed I was when I was very small, and have all of my abilities heightened and my senses heightened. So I honestly, to this date, I cannot tell you what Deeksha is, but it's been fun, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the expansion of whatever that is that's going to follow.
Now you also said, I think I understood that you said the Deeksha itself has a kind of intelligence.
Yes.
That it knows where to go.
Yes.
So then it seems to me that there are actually three things occurring.
Yes. Yes.
There is the intelligence of the Deeksha,
yes,
and where it wants to go.
Yes.
There is also the intent of the Deeksha giver,
yes,
and the intent of the Deeksha receiver.
Yes.
Now what happens if all of these don't match up? If the Deeksha intelligence is going one way, but the intent is going another way,
yes,
which one will be senior?
The Deeksha would be senior,
yes,
but the effect is reduced.
I see.
Now let us say you are a doctor and you know that the arteries have got to be opened up. That is your intent. Now how to open up the arteries, you have no idea. But Deeksha's intelligence knows how to open up the arteries.
I
so
see.
It works.
I see.
And suppose in case you do not know, still they would open up, but may not be fully,
I see.
So your strong intent that all these arteries must open up. Then the Deeksha goes and does exactly that. How it does that? It has the intelligence.
I see. So could you give some tips
Yes.
for how to create good, effective intent?
For that, the heart has to flower.
Yeah.
You have to learn to listen to the other person, really feel for him. Somebody comes and tells you about his financial problems. You must put yourself in his shoes, see what exactly he's suffering and what his wants are, and then you begin to empathize with him, And then only you must give the Deeksha. Not straight away jump and give a Deeksha, You must take your time, listen to him, meet his family, begin to feel for him, and then go for the Deeksha.
Yes.
The heart plays a key role.
Yes.
If you merely take it into your head,
Yes.
but there's no warmth in the heart,
Yes.
the Deeksha is not going to be really effective.
Yes, I see. But when you speak of big heart,
Yes.
some Deeksha givers may feel, I don't have a big heart. How can we make our heart bigger?
For that, he has to go and receive a Deeksha for getting a big heart.
I see.
Because a Deeksha can really open up the heart.
Yes.
And then you go back and give Deekshas.
And if you want to have Deeksha to really open your heart and feel much love, you should have Deeksha from someone where you can feel their heart is open and they have
yes,
love. I
that's
see.
it.
That's
Yes.
very interesting to
Yes.
see. Yeah. And if you want to have Deeksha to make more money, then
Yes.
Deeksha from Tony Robbins would be the best.
Would be the best. Yes.
I see. And some others are really inferior Deeksha givers.
Yes.
Is this a good way to look?
If the Deeksha giver himself or herself is enlightened or in a very high state of consciousness, the Deekshas are in fact very different. And there are Deeksha givers who can put you into a state of love those who could put you into a state of joy, those who could put you into a state of silence. So we have different specialist Deeksha givers here, in fact. So the person who's giving does really matter.
Do you feel that there is anyone who should not receive Deeksha at all for some reason?
Basically, we cannot judge people, you know. If you bring to us somebody and say, look, this person is the devil himself, we are certainly not going to judge him. So in that sense, we have never felt this person should not be given Deeksha, that person should not be given Deeksha. But we have felt that maybe this person is more qualified to receive than him, you know. That kind of thoughts we have had. But certainly we have never condemned anybody and said this person is no good, no. We just cannot think like that. It's not possible.
Bhagavan, when someone is receiving Deeksha, maybe for the first time or after a few times, what is the best disposition to bring to the Deeksha? For example, you mentioned already intention. Is it always good to bring an intention to the Deeksha? Is it good to have some silence before the Deeksha? Is there some way that we can help the Deeksha to be effective through the right disposition?
If people are open-minded and if you have fairly good relationships, especially with your parents, then Deekshas are bound to be very effective. In case you had a bad relationship with your mother or father, the Deekshas seem to stop halfway. It doesn't seem to work beyond that unless we again work on you and set right the relationship and once again repeat the Deeksha. So from experience we have found the most crucial factor is one's relationship with one's parents. If that were fine, the Deekshas are really powerful.
This phenomenon has really grown quite extensively, but how did it all begin?
I and a friend of mine, we were very dissatisfied with the education system. So we wanted to try out a new kind of school which would help children discover what their true nature was. It was a residential school and the whole idea was to help children become enlightened. So that was the motive in starting the school. And it so happened that some people did become enlightened. And some children became enlightened, some parents became enlightened. That is how the whole phenomenon began. I think it was the year 1989, and probably the month was August. One day my son came along and he told me, there's somebody inside me. And then I asked him, how does he look like? He said, he looks pretty young and he seems to be having a golden body. I asked him, could you ask him who he is? He said, yes, I'll ask him. He spoke to him and told me he's saying he's Prajapati. I said, oh, could you ask him that whether he would help you to get into others? Then he again contacted him and he said, yes, he says he's willing to get into others. So find out from him how we should go about it. And then he said, place your hands on somebody and I will go into him. So I called a few children and said, now place your hands on them. And the moment he placed his hands on them, in a moment's notice, they said, yes, we have a golden being inside us. And the same question was repeated. Ask him who he is. He said, I am Prajapati. That was how this phenomenon broke loose.
One day in the month of August, on the 17th of August, 1989, at around 7 o'clock in the evening, it was raining. Bhagavan sent word for me. So I went to Bhagavan's house, and there, a huge table, and this side was Bhagavan. That side was Bhagavan's only son, Sri Krishna ji. He was sitting there. Bhagavan told me to sit there on the opposite side. Shri Krishna ji is younger to me by 1 year. Bhagavan said, now close your eyes, Krishna will give you something, receive it. I closed my eyes. At the moment I did, it was very strange. I felt like a light, a beam of light, a shaft of light was coming and hitting me from him. And for the first time, with my eyes closed, I could see the whole room, as though my eyes were open. And he placed his hands on my head. As soon as he did that, there was tremendous heat from the base of my spine rising to the crown of my head. Now I know it is Kundalini. And I began to see these chakras all blossoming, one after the other, and the various gods. I do not have that kind of religious background where I know who these gods are or what these chakras are about. But they simply opened up in front of me. It was an immense experience. I was dazed, I was shocked. I hadn't expected it. And then Bhagavan said I could open my eyes. When I opened my eyes, I still was not sure of what was happening. By the clock, it was only 2 minutes that this entire thing had happened. For me, it looked like a long, long time. Bhagavan said you could go and rest. I came back to my room, but the Deeksha continued. Deeksha that Krishna ji had given was not over in those 2 minutes' time. It continued to unfold itself rather. A few days later, when I went home in September for vacation, I was lying down in the afternoon, reading a book, waiting for my father to come back from the clinic. I just then had a very beautiful dialogue with my mother. I was lying down on the sofa. And suddenly there was something very warm in the heart. And it felt like being transparent. And there I could see Bhagavan. You must know, we still did not call Bhagavan as Bhagavan. We used to call him Sir. So it was very amazing to me. How is it that Sir is in my heart? And then Bhagavan began to speak from within. It was as audible as this, so physical. I was not afraid, but it was fun. It felt very nice that Sir was within me and he was talking to me. And throughout the vacation, many strange experiences. Whenever I wanted to see Amma, as soon as the desire ended, all that I had to do was ask, Sir, I want to see Amma. Immediately my astral body would be out, and there I would be at Jeevashram. I would know exactly the sari that Amma was wearing that day, to whom Amma was speaking. And in fact, when I went there, Amma would also tell people who were around that I had come. The distance, physical distance, had disappeared.
It was the night after I received my first Deeksha from Bhagavan's son, Sri Krishna ji. I was sleeping in my dormitory with few of my other classmates. We were about 10 or 12 sleeping in the dormitory. I saw Bhagavan walking into our dormitory. It's the first time I'm seeing Bhagavan in my vision. But it didn't look like a vision. It was very, very real. And I was wondering, what is the directors are doing in our dormitory so late in the night? Because still, I did not know who Bhagavan was. Bhagavan walked up to me. I was sleeping. He woke me up. He said, "Giri, wake up, wake up." Bhagavan was looking at me and Bhagavan spoke these few words to me. Bhagavan said, "Giri, isn't it time for you to change into cotton now?" He spoke these few words. I was sleeping in my regular dress, my shirt and my trousers. Just woke me up and said, "Giri, isn't it time for you to change into cotton?" He spoke these few words and he walked away. I did not understand what it meant. Closed my eyes, tried to go back to sleep. And I kept hearing Bhagavan's voice saying so many other things. And I saw so many images. Next morning when I woke up, I felt very different. I felt like I was declutched from my past. I could remember everything about my past, but somehow felt far away from it. It was a very new experience to me because I did not have any spiritual background. So I went to Bhagavan and shared